So, welcome. I really appreciate being between you and the coffee after the lunchtime. So, take a good posture there and just don't let me interfere your dreams. So, as Morten told you that I have been around quite a long time, and here I listed some of the main APL interpreters I've been working with during this for over 40 years. And most influenced I was with APL 2, and then 1994 I met Dyalog APL, which was, I think it was version 6.3 then. And I changed my lover, and so I've been in Dyalog APL ever since. And the last 20 plus years I work for Statistics Finland, and all of happenstance I have been programming this one application, which is being used in statistical offices and other bodies all around the globe. For example, last June I was in Mali teaching people for 1 week to use the tool. So it has been funny working with Dyalog APL. And this is fully programmed with Dyalog APL, and mainly it handles lots of text files. And if you imagine that people are using my tool, using PX Edit or PX Job, which is the sister product of it, and they have so-called database with, say, 7,000 files, and I can snip off 1/100th of a second per file reading or writing process. It means that the user will gain 1.2 minutes for each database run. So I've been very keen on performance issues. And of course, in my presentation, as I said, I'm an APL2 bigot, so quad migration level is 3, as it always should be. That rhymes. So I've been around for quite a long time, so this is sometimes what I feel, pretty much. So this is something I think most of you find very familiar. The Dyalog landscape, those blue mountains and red valleys, which are for each and every version announcement. Morten is producing this type of charts, and these are really fantastic to see that in each and every interpreter. I hope that my application is always on the mountain side, but Dyalog tests all the features, and most of which I don't use. Actually, during the years, there's smaller and smaller ratio of features I'm using compared to what features are included in the interpreter. And some of those features are very crucial for me or the application. So I'm very, very interested in to know if those features are still intact or even work better than in previous times. And there have been times in which I could have some performance gain by using some idioms versus primitive functions. The one very notorious or remarkable difference was unique versus this unique idiom. And there have been others as well. So I created during the years something I called testing packages. It's for my personal use, but something like this in which I test those certain idioms against each other with some test material. So it gives me in Finnish some text on the screen, so I know that what is being testing. I have some prepared testing material, and then I have a list of different idioms, and then I have the cover function for defuns CMPX, and it produces me the results, so I can know which idiom to use. And most of these idioms are being used by cover functions, so when I switch to the next version of Dyalog APL, I can easily switch those cover functions as well. And some of these cover functions are used quite heavily, so I really get some performance gain by making these kind of tests. And for example, when I was testing version 18.2, what is happening here? I realized that there were a couple of remarkable differences between 18.0 and 18.2. So having this testing the vector or vectors or nested vector, if all the values are similar or not. And so something had happened between those two versions, because even the time difference is in certain decade. So, and another one was using rank operator to get the first column for the matrix. And something has happened to the rank operator here. This is first, up arrow always, in my world. So then we had the thing called coronavirus. So actually it didn't affect the Finns as that much as the rest of the world. But what I got was 2 extra hours per each and every day, because I didn't have to commute back to work. And no one was checking my work except my wife, who was always asking me that, what about coming to eat? And with those 2 extra hours, I got new ideas about what to do, because 1 hour per giving to the company, and the next 8 hours to something that I really like to do. And then I realized I had the idea that what about if I could compare different Dyalog versions against each other, instead of comparing some idioms inside one new version. And having this kind of ideas is very dangerous, because I had bought this laptop, HP laptop, with 10 or 20 euros from our company. They sold them out. I installed all the possible interpreters in this old laptop, which actually had Windows 7, so I could install most of these versions there, starting from 8.1 Classic. I was really sorry I couldn't install the 6.3 there. And running my test package, which contains 64 different tests in every interpreter possible. So I tried to I made the same code running in each and every version, even in classical ones. And I tried to make the machine so minimized all the background noise, so no updates, no internet connection, no screensaver, and so on, killing some processes back there, so that it would be a little bit more or less standardized environment for this purpose. So I scheduled something like this, so in which I opened a separate interpreter, and then I import the testing package from the common code file, which is a text file, and then I run the test package, approximately 20 minutes per interpreter, and every test result will be saved in the corresponding CSV file. ASCII CSV file, because I was playing with the classical interpreters as well, so I couldn't use Unicode. And when the tests were done, the CSV files I will convert to PX files. And if you remember still, the application was called PX Edit, so it's handling so-called PX files, which contains statistical files with data and metadata. So that was my tool, and I could be using it quite extensively. So I knew what it should do. And then I could just load the results in PX Edit. And so I could know what is going on there. So running the old code, new code in old interpreters was a little bit challenging, because then I realized that my coding, the way how I code has been changing during the different versions of Dyalog, and try to remember how I coded back in version 8.1 was a little bit challenging. And here's a list of some of the new things that have happened in the interpreters language-wise. And of course, I had to make some tests in which that, for example, in version 15, I couldn't use, or in version 13, I couldn't use function trains, for example. And I spent a couple of hours trying to figure out how to convert the code to classic, but then it occurred to me that there's the system variable quad AVU, which was really life-saving here. So I save all the functions as quad VR coded as a code points in a text file. So it's full of numbers, and they are all the functions were comma separated. And then I read that file, convert the numbers as converted the text as numbers, and numbers are converted using quad AVU to texts, and those glyphs that are not found in quad AVU are simply converted to question marks because they are not used in that version at all. So during the years I have been making this testing package. So first I'm using semi-globals here, Elena. All the semi-globals start with underline. And I try to introduce two languages, so it's Finnish and Finglish. Something it resembles English quite closely. And then I separated 3 different groups: D functions, function trains, and as you can see, here is the control telling that, okay, before version 14, I'm not including these lines. And some primitives as well. And then there's a new cover function which takes care of everything. And Morten wanted me to show you the code for 2 reasons. The other one is that I'm very inclined to show very small details. You would immediately start recoding the whole system. So this is the most. So this is the CSV file, what the whole system does. So in each and every version, I'll make the ASCII ID for each and every idiom, and there's a version number and some mystical number that comes out from the testing. And each and every version of interpreter is represented here, and sometimes I've run in different order, so the version numbers are included. And the format is mainly because of the PX format. And then I create the so-called template file, which is the template file I need to use for making multilingual PX files. And then here's the mystical PX file, shortly put metadata and data. And the other ones you are not interested in this course. And when I read the table in pxedit, you can see that the version numbers go on the header line there, and in the rows you have different idioms. And the background color shows you how big or small the number is. The lighter the background color, the smaller the number. And those dots mean that in this version, these idioms are not working, so there's null values there. And I've embedded RainPro in pxedit, and now it became really funny because I wanted to see the trend, how the interpreter is working. Good. Yeah. Always when you squeeze something in your presentation, you just try to forget all the times in which you try to get rid of some bugs. But now we come to the part which Morten said that if you are run out of text, you can just lean on the keyboard and show the results. So what I found very interesting is that in some cases you can see these are the 32-bit versions of the interpreters. 64 bits show the same trends, so whatsoever. So here's, for example, if I'm testing, which is very important for PX editor when I'm reading text files or some other input, to know that if the text is all blanks or it's empty. They are functionally the same in PX world. So in some idioms you can see something has happened in between 14.1 and 17. This tells me a nice story. And this, you can see that idiom there, which I showed in the beginning. It was in 17.0 to 18.0. It was quite well behaving, but now something happened, or in that inner product. And others really interesting trends are going on. Usually you can see that the older the version, there have been great variety between different idioms, but then the more modern version you are using, the closer they get each other. This is my favorite, very important part of the applications being written is the to make the text case changing, so that for example in Finnish and in Danish and in Swedish we have extra national characters that have to be taken care of. So this shows the APL function, which is only the subset of these characters changing uppercase or lowercase. This one is quad NA run system function. The yellow one is yellow line there is the I-beam, and that green tiny, very almost below zero is Richard Smith's really life-saving quad C. And having last column of matrix, first column of matrix, and picking columns and so on. Now I start leading on the keyboard. In some cases, I took some of these, not in this case, but in some cases I took just from the old FinAPL idiom library to see how the old really bad idioms work, and they were really bad. But something has happened. Okay, here we have, if you can see, this is the old FinAPL idiom in which you could search matrix rows, and it was really using all the resources that were well available. So when I moved the focus on the latest versions, you can see that even that old idiom is getting much more efficient there. But of course, forget all these constructions, old constructions. Usually the quickest one here, for example, is in matrix searching is to use iota, which it always should be. And yes, here we have, if we have a matrix, I want to make all the columns as nested column-wise. There are totally different methods which work quite widely. But if I want to make them row-wise, all the idioms seem to work quite well. What is happening here? No. Yeah. This was one of my favorite charts, in which you can see the nice curve going on there, and it's something like I feel like an artist here. So. Yeah. Now, this one has to be shown you, because in each and every presentation you have to show the mean. I know Dyalog forgot the ducks in some 15 years ago, but a mean is always there. And what is there? No, actually nothing special. Only this vector sort was behaving differently. It was working better in version 18.0 than in 18.2. Some of these oddballs are there, but Yeah. So, a few minutes time for questions if you have any.